welcome everybody who had the time and the kindness to watch this interview with the very talented, very fun Cassidy Brown. Uh, Bay Area loves you, and I gotta say, man, I love you. I greatly appreciate you. You have been very influential in my own acting career, and you were one of the great gems
Oh,
I found coming into this art. So I'd like to ask you, if I could, how long have you been in the Bay Area?
I came back to the Bay. I kind of came up here a little bit. I was born in Oakland, but I didn't grow up here. I grew up a long ways away in New Mexico, a small town, Los Alamos.
Okay.
But then I came back, went to Sonoma State, which is sort of northern Bay Area for undergrad. And then I left, and I came back, and I left, and I came back. But then I was living here, and then start after a sad breakup in about 97. I moved back to the Bay Area and really established myself. Started, okay, I'm here. Started being here at around 1997, I would say. So that's, 23 years, no, 30, wait, 97,
Drag me off
20, yeah,
argument.
23 years, 23 years.
Okay, all right. So you are no transplant.
No, I
Oakland.
was born here, and I feel like I've re-earned my my native status, as it were.
Yeah, I would say that and some. I would say that and some. So I met you in theater,
Mm-hmm.
but I also saw you in a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you in a commercial whereby you were parking a car.
What
You
am I?
remember that commercial?
Yeah, I do. Hey, that commercial kind of bailed me out of some financial straits at the time. I'm gonna be honest. It was a good, well-timed commercial. Yeah, it was a national commercial where it was for Smart Car. So the car that I was advertising was the little tiny car, but I was driving like a 1997 like Ford Focus, or not even a Focus, like a big, one of the big long 1990s sedan type cars.
Yeah.
And I was trying to back it out of a parking space, and I was banging the cars in front of me.
Right. Yeah,
They did not pay me as a stunt performer in that, and they should have, because
really.
I was actually getting in 20, 30, 40 tiny little accidents that day.
Oh, now you SAG-AFTRA.
Uh-huh.
So they should have.
I think so. In hindsight, like I should have talked to my agent and been like, hey, by the way, you should probably poke at somebody on this, because I was a stunt driver at that moment.
Yeah.
I was driving a car and banging it into vehicles in front of me and behind me.
Yeah.
But it was also so fun.
Yeah.
And my chiropractor was very useful following that.
I bet. When did you know that you had that desire to want to perform? How early was it for you?
I mean, I often sort of just tell the story of being like, when you're a kid and a young kid, and the concept of like, I want to be a blank when I grow up, and you might go through phases. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a veterinarian. Like, I literally don't remember any other thought that, oh, I want to be an actor when I grow up. Even when I was like a little tiny kid, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't really know how to achieve that. And concurrent with that, though, going through school, going through undergrad, and even going to grad school, getting my MFA, blah, 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 pursuing the sort of path, the only options that we sort of know, I also didn't actually believe that I would totally be an actor, like that I would ever call that my profession. So I was both pursuing it and never really like believing that. I knew I would end up, in my mind, and this sounds like I'd be settling for, and I've learned way better since then about that idea, but I always thought like, oh, I'm going to end up being a high school teacher. That's fine. But I'm going to pursue acting and end up being a teacher, as though that's some like, that's not an absolutely noble other option that I shouldn't have thought of as a fallback, because that's an insane thing in and of itself.
Mhm.
But it turned out I got to do it, and now I get to call myself an actor. It just kind of, oh, I am an actor. Okay, cool.
Well, you are. You're a very good one. Has comedy been your favorite genre?
I mean, favorite or favored, like that has been my tend towards, like people, it's my easier path for me is like physical comedy, slapstick comedy, comedy timing, comic stuff has been always where I've ended up. I always want to do more. I don't know. I mean, I hate the word drama as opposed to comedy, because, you know, good writing has in it emotional truth regardless. So like,
Yeah.
I'd rather do, but like, I do tend to do shows like The 39 Steps, which is a super outlandish comedy. I wouldn't call it good writing in the sense of like, you know, emotional truth. It's just fun and wacky and slapstick. And I do tend to do more of those. I think I always long to do more, like, I don't even like the term legitimate theater, but like something that's a little more grounded in like, you know, emotional truth and stuff like that. So, but yes, short answer, yeah, comedy is generally where I go.
Okay. That brings up a couple of those grounding performances that you've had. I'd like to bring up two.
Okay.
Your Iago, in my opinion, is very, very good. It was.
I mean, obviously that was a product of getting an opportunity to work off of some really amazing and grounding other performances, yours very specifically, like the fact that we were able to trust each other in a way that allowed me to be so awful and not like apologize for it while I was doing it, which is the worst thing you can do when playing evil or playing, you know, someone who is, you know, morally reprehensible or counter to your own values. You can tend to be like, I'm playing this, but I'm not really, right? You guys know I'm not this.
Well,
because I have that tendency to like make sure people trust me, and so like that we have that trust.
Yeah.
And we were able to just, you know, I knew I could look you in the eye and be the worst human being possible.
Right.
And that wasn't a reflection on our relationship. That we knew who we were with each other, both on and off stage. So that
right.
made a
I
huge difference.
Yeah. And I have to say what contributed to that greatly was a lot of the rides to and from rehearsal.
Yeah.
That provided very important time to really get to know one another.
Couldn't have been a better weird combo, like putting the Brown brothers in a car who are playing Iago and Othello. Like,
oh yeah, and the guy playing Iago is actually Jamal.
Right. That's my middle name for those who don't know.
Right.
It confuses people sometimes, rightfully so.
After that, you had urged me to come and see the show that you were working in at the close of Othello. Mm-hmm. And I told you that I would. And I have to tell you, man, that seeing the transformation that you had made in that, and that show being Safe House.
Oh, yeah. Whew.
Wow. That was one of the most engaging shows that I had seen in the Bay Area. And every person performed above the rim.
Yeah.
Every person. It was just it was awesome to watch, and seeing your character navigate between a hard world and a gentle hope. I can best describe it as.
Wow, that's a great way of putting it.
It was so delicate. It was so believable. And I believe it was the amazing Dawn Troop
Oh God. I'll
Ah,
talk about that in a sec, about her in a sec, about my relationship with her. It's,
mm,
yeah, that show was an answer to a prayer at the moment, literally for me. I was struggling with being in a very, and it's something we're dealing with right now, frankly, is the sort
right.
of the, frankly, that the, the world at large, but also the theater world and the Bay Area theater world is still steeped in white supremacy. Like we just are. We have, and we're grappling with that and starting to try and really break those ideas down, and I am part of it, absolutely 100%. And I was realizing that I was just in this space of always, and it was a very comfortable space for me of being, there's always a role for me. I'm in like shows with mostly white casts and, and Othello was one of those. It was an amazing experience, but I was also kind of looking around going, here it is again.
Right.
Like this energy of like me being in the majority and not having to inspect my own stuff. And I said, I was going through some stuff at the time too, just some personal stuff. And I said to the universe, I would like to either be in a show that is way far out of town, because there was a whole Bay Area thing that I was struggling with, or a show where I am the only white person. Like, I want to be in the minority. I want to be serving other voices. I want to be doing work that is not so majority driven. And at that moment, suddenly I was called in very last minute on both of these auditions because time had run out.
Yeah.
For a show in Florida, way far out of town, and for Safe House. And then they both were being it got to the point where I was going to be offered both of them, but they conflicted. So it was like, careful what you ask for, because the universe was like, okay, you need to be specific because you got both of the things you asked for. So I chose one, and thank God I chose Safe House.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
And Dawn Troop, so I've always been a little bit in love with that woman. She knows this. It's not like, this deep longing, but it is like, I've had this for 15 years that I've known her. I've always had this underlying, like, actual, not just like, oh, she's a great person, but a little deeper than that. Like, yeah. I have a little bit of a love for her that is, true. And like, just her person is so powerful to me. And so when we were on stage together, those moments did not have to be acting. I was able to be in love with this person, that my character was in love with her.
Yeah.
And when I betray her and she is devastated by my betrayal, that was devastating to me personally, Cassidy, as well as the character. And so, like, the truth of that, I didn't have to work at. And it was such an honor to have the same thing that we were talking about. She and I have a trust where we can look at each other and go, like, and say, like, you betrayed me. And I could both feel the truth of it and also not be threatened by it, because I knew that we trusted each other.
Yeah.
That intimacy that comes from being able to hate each other on stage is a very intimate act.
Yes. That was, you certainly got your wish. You were the only
white person
in the show. And was it David White?
David Moore.
David Moore.
Yeah, David Moore and Lance Gardner and Desi Soleil and Don Jamela, who's, I can't remember Jamel's last name. Jamela Cross, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, God, what an honor that show was to get to do.
The entire cast was amazing.
We just kept each other. And our first preview was election night 2016. So we were devastated and reeling, and like reopening the wounds of racism were just being laid bare in front of us here in our modern moment. And here we were going back into this play, second preview, like looking at each other going, okay, here we go. Mm-hmm. What the hell just happened to our, it was intense.
And now, as a result of that, one could argue that we are where we are now because of the rapid pace of this person's particular inclinations
Mm-hmm.
taking effect.
He who shall not be named.
Right. So understanding that, bringing that to now and seeing where we are today, as an artist, as an Oaklander, as a human being, what is your take on the role of the artist, the citizen, and the human?
Yeah.
During this time.
Whew. You're asking for some very deep thoughts, and I'll attempt to answer that level of depth. There's a few things have happened in this moment, and I'm not sure if this answers the question, but I've been thinking about how, first talking about sort of institutionally, so, COVID-19 happened, and suddenly the structure of our industry and our sort of how I had created a life was suddenly just slammed to a halt. And they said, maybe not, maybe you won't be doing the thing you've been doing. All of you, your structure the brakes have been put on for a long time, not for 2 months. It's going to be several months before our industry is able to recreate itself.
Right.
That happened at the same moment, like right after a lot of, like, let's say artistic directors had made a lot of changes. A lot of new artistic directors had come into a lot of institutional spaces, theaters. And a lot of those, not enough, frankly, but an increasingly slightly better number of those artistic directors coming in were artists of color, were women, were queer folk, and just the change of the sort of dominant white male structure was being very slightly challenged, right? Was being very slightly shifted. And that right at that moment, let's stop, let's close down our institutions for a moment. So suddenly, like I think a good example is Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And then Taki Garrett comes in, who's this incredible, wonderful, radical theater maker, Black woman, and she's just awesome. And then she hires as her associate artistic director Evan Odgkin, a queer Middle Eastern artist, of Middle Eastern descent. And then they suddenly are handed this thing, and then it's shut down. Right. That's all to say, at this moment, what could possibly come out of this is if we've torn that structure down because of COVID, and now we've been given this increased heat under the idea of like decolonizing all of our thought and the way we are operating, police, the government, the state, and the arts.
Right.
So it's happened simultaneously, an increased heat under decolonizing the arts. Mm-hmm. So possibly, this is my Pollyanna thought, the opportunity of COVID shutdown coupled with new voices being put in charge of some of those giant institutions, they get to now recreate from the ground up a little bit. When they do restart, they can say, we're not going to restart like we were before. We're going to be a different structure. We're going to be different because we can. We have to anyway. We have to reinvent ourselves to restart. So why not restart with a far greater view towards, I don't even like the words diversity, like towards voices, towards equity and voices, and not following the structures of white supremacy. So that's a hopeful thought that may or may not come to pass.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't, we're committed to not going away on the topic, right?
Right. We ain't shutting up. It's coming up in all directions. This whole new moment. It's not a new moment, just the increase of the volume of the moment, I would say.
Yeah.
started around police brutality and police murder of citizens, specifically Black citizens, Black human beings, regardless of citizenship. It's fucking irrelevant. Excuse me. You can beep that out if you need. But it's now, the moment has grown like to add all the ideas around white supremacy structural inequity, you know, which includes, you know, queer and trans voices. It includes a greater dynamic of people of color, not just Black folks, but other folks as well. Other, frankly, non-white folks, which we are, because we've been in charge for way too fucking long and we've been messing it up. So,
it's important for all the people to have fair, equal input. It's only right. It's only civilized, right?
Yeah, it's only what? Why is it not? Like, how could it not be?
Right. And sometimes, I mean, out of sight, definitely out of mind, until you know, they do say that the riots are the voices of the unheard, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
And it seems like some people are hearing some things. I'm hopeful that these changes will be in theater and the nation will be well received.
I hope
of course,
so.
there will be those who, you know, resistant to change, but time moves on. Time moves on.
I mean, I am deeply convinced that a vast majority of our actual populace is very much in favor of the concepts of not just equality, but equity, and the concepts of voices of all being heard. But it's that the vast majority does not have access to the currency of power.
Right.
So whether it be through voting or through just, you know, running theaters, or through access to the media and or anything else, like if we literally just polled the entire country 100% on a checklist of like, what do you actually want the world to look like? I feel like the people that I perceive as being, you know, actively anti these values, it's 25%. I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like
not the majority.
They're not even close to the majority. Like, I feel like they just have the majority of power,
right,
and voice.
Right. I do agree with that. I believe that most people are decent. I believe that most people want the right thing, even if they don't know how to get there. Which brings me to another point: advocacy and allyship. If this is going to happen, we have to be vigilant, and our allies as well, in every aspect of human endeavor, especially in this nation. As an ally, and I do consider you to be one.
I'm honored to accept the title from you. I feel like that. I think that's appropriate, though, that I don't think anyone can call themselves an ally. I honestly believe they can only strive to be. But go on.
And that's good. That's good to remember. I have seen certain things that you have done. I won't go into those things, but you'll know what I'm talking about. Certain things that you have done with your access and your space to assist others in a human, decent way. And I think that is a very noble thing. Rami as well. And it's amazing, you know, what you guys mean and do on so many levels. We have a task in really changing theater, really changing long long held beliefs of entitled behavior in these fields. Are there any organizations or even books that you've read that you feel will be helpful to those who want to seek to be allies?
It's funny because I'm only in the middle of an example book that a lot of people have recommended, which is White Fragility. And now I've just recently been hearing from some folks around like, great, another book by a white lady who's making a lot of money doing corporate trainings. And it's like, okay, so now maybe we're calling into question that resource. But regardless, I've also had it recommended by a number of folks across the spectrum of advocacy and stuff as a good first step for people. The book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I'm just saying it with a grain of salt only because recently I've just been like exposed to like people going,
yeah,
voices of color are a way better way to approach these things. But I don't have any other specific books per se because I just literally haven't had time to read lately. And I have posted like on my Facebook and other places, I mostly just post links to those resources, which I don't have in my head. But I think what I will say is my encouragement, especially to my fellow white folks, is like, especially to the fellow white men, especially the fellow straight white men, like the ones who are dominant at every level, is like seek out, and it's not hard. I mean, a simple Google search, find the list that's curated specific. Let's start with like who's curating the list of what your resources are. Is that list curated by a person or a group that is, for example, like a Black-led group rather than a white-led group? Like so what are the voices you're asking for the information from? Because the work has been done and now it's like we got to do our own work. We can't keep going back to the like, teach me Black friend, how to be better. Like there's plenty of resources out there for us to just, things to read by, go to the Movement for Black Lives, MB4L is a good place to just start. Surge, which is it's actually showing up for racial justice as an organization that is, I don't know if it's but it is definitely for white folks. It's like, it is more like allyship training. And I'm not actually sure of the leadership of that organization. So, I'm still, like balancing the like, seek to be led by people of color in what choices you make. Seek to take in every way you can yourself out of the leadership role. Like lead by example and help and advocate, but then don't be the front line of the leadership.
Right.
That's my personal sort of suggestion for approach.
And it becomes very complicated sometimes when you hear multiple voices. You hear some voices say that, hey, and rightfully so for them, look, we're tired of being the ones to have to teach this thing. We're not responsible. We shouldn't have to end racism. We didn't start it. So you hear that, and then in another voice you hear, well, here's a white woman with white fragility who wrote the book and who's giving seminars. It's, in one part, it's like, okay, some people learn best from familiar.
Right. Yeah.
And they can hear it. It is true. I think we can all agree that sometimes we can both speak a truth, but it can be better received from one voice as opposed to the next.
Yeah.
So my position on that is, whatever the delivery system works for you, get it. By all means, get the medicine.
Right. Get the medicine. Thank you. That's a good way of looking at it. Like, and you're going to also get pushback from people saying like, oh, now you get it. And that's frustrating. Like, oh, it took you this long to get it. And you go, what you got to do is say, yeah, that's another one of my failures. And I'm trying to be here now, and I'm going to keep. And somebody said something recently. Criticism, or like direct criticism about whatever your process is, that is a freaking honor. Someone is trusting you to hear them. When they're if they're criticizing you, if they're saying like, I'm frustrated with you as an ally for failing in this way or whatever, or they're calling you out, that's a freaking honor, because they're trusting you with their time, attention, like it's an act of love, frankly, I think. So like to be able to receive said criticism and just go, okay, yeah, here we go. I'm going to keep going forward.
Right. And the thing is just the commitment to be better, to do better.
Constantly.
Who can ask for more than a sincere commitment to that? Well, going into our great unknown.
Yeah, my God.
The future of all of this. I have to ask, have you drawn any inspiration from this period of quarantine, this period of blood, tears, and fire?
I'll go with the first part, because where my inspiration started to come was during quarantine. I had the great pleasure of feeling very well taken care of and very well situated when quarantine started. I have an amazing household of folk that we all kind of agreed to be sort of, take care of our germ pod. So starting with that, actually, in a context of great suffering, I was given the gift of increased security. So that was a blessing, and I can't feel more grateful than I do. I feel so grateful for it. And then I was able to kind of go, well, what am I going to do? I'm here. I got time. And literally that is all I had, was time.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a bunch of writer friends, and just, I had shaved my mustache in a funny way. I made myself like a handlebar biker mustache and shaved the rest off just out of boredom. I'm like, ah. And then I said, oh, who is this guy? And I said, anybody want to write a monologue for this guy? And I started to get submissions from I'm blessed to have a lot of writer friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I committed. I was like, if I get a monologue, I'm performing the monologue. And so I took all of them, put them on, and then recorded them all and edited them together into this thing I call the Mustache Monologues. And it's a series of, I think, six or seven, just anywhere from 2 to 6 minute monologues being performed, in different costumes and in different locations around my house. And so that was just a lot of fun. That just felt like wonderfully personal while still like connecting to the people in outside my world. So that was just fun. And so but it was also inspirational as the idea of like, wait, what if I start focusing more on at least collaboratively creating my own content? So that was one thing that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I'll send you a link to that if you want to see it.
Please do. Yeah. I'd love to check them out. I want to ask you, do you have any, I'm sure you do, what advice would you give to a young person who is cautiously approaching this field of entertainment, acting, and an older person who is a virgin to the craft? What advice would you offer to them?
Yeah. Especially right now, it's even more unsure and challenging because the structures upon which we've built our paths have been shut down. So we're in a moment where we don't know when Broadway will reopen or when regional theaters will start going again. So our actual employment is in question. So given that, it's hard to say like how to make a career right now. I can't give that advice. I literally have no idea. I don't know how my career will continue. And I'm weirdly unpanicked about it. I've never felt that before, that sense of like, I don't know. So the part of it I can advise is the thing that has never changed. And that is, sounds trite, but just relationship, like relationship, because it's the basis of our art. It is by nature a relational art. It requires an active participation by other people. Even if you're doing solo work, it requires an active participation of the audience to exist and to take in your work. That's the sort of philosophical underpinnings, but also the professional underpinnings. As you know very well, it is who you have created relationship with that gets you further work, creates further opportunity. It's not, that one audition that furthers your career. It never is. That might get you a show. Like, I just went and did a good audition and I was the right person at the right time for this play and I got cast. It's the relationships you create as a result of that show that actually grow your career. And it might be the relationship with a lighting designer. It might be the friendship you create during tech with your dresser, or whatever. Those are all real, very deep. Not just because of the like, oh, that person might become more powerful and get you more work later on, but literally just the communal aspect of, hearing about opportunities, co-creating opportunities, things that years later turn into something, being the right person that comes into someone's head as a result of the relationship you had, not because you were a good actor, right, but because you were a good human that connected. Yes. Yeah. So that would be my general, and I think it doesn't matter whether you're brand new, older or younger. Yes. It is absolutely how you connect with people that will continue to increase your opportunities to do more, given that we might not actually have theater for a little while.
Well, for a little while.
I am actually doing theater right now. It's a unique thing. We are doing a production of King Lear through San Francisco Shakespeare Festival through Zoom, but we are de-zooming Zoom. There will not be a grid.
Really?
I'm not going to say much because some of it is trade secrets at this point.
Okay. All right. Well,
we are in rehearsal. I'll say enough to get you interested, though. You're not going to be watching a reading of a play with a bunch of squares. You're going to be watching something that's more of a hybrid of live theater and, say, film.
Oh, wonderful.
And I will also say that each actor involved is still in their own home. Every single one of us will be separate in our own space, and they'll be bringing us together on one screen. That's all you need to know. It's very exciting. It's going to be very challenging. It might be very messy. It might not work as well as we hope.
It's okay.
But we're trying it out, and it's a union approved. Actors Equity is behind it 100%. San Francisco Shakespeare is really taking the lead on trying this idea out. We have an incredible tech director. We have an incredible cast of some Bay Area's best actors, just phenomenal. David Moore is also in this one, who I work with. Safe House, yeah. Leontine Nobelimbong is in it. So I'm not going to list them all because there are just too many great, wonderful people in it.
Well, you have my interest for sure.
Yeah, and here's the thing about access. Like, that's one of the problems. It's one of those sort of white supremacist structural issues of theater is access. It will require technical access. So people to view it will need to have some form of computer. So that is the one bar, the very low, but still actually existing bar to access. But literally anybody anywhere in the country will be able to watch the show, which I believe we will be performing once or twice a week in totality. You can watch it live, and then it will be on YouTube for that week, that version, and then the next week we will perform it again live. So it'll reset itself once a week. So it'll be like live it's a hybrid of live and recorded performance.
Yes,
I think that's right. Don't quote me on that. If I am saying something that the union is like, no, that's not what we agreed to, please, if someone's watching this, please understand that I may be mistaken on how it's actually operating. I know we are operating within the agreements that were put forth.
But we'll make certain that fact is not edited.
Right. Just leave that in there, because just be clear, big caveats. I might be misunderstanding how we're doing it. But point is, I do know we will be performing it live for a series of weeks on end, just like San Francisco Shakes has done, free Shakespeare in the Park for the last 20-something years. They're continuing that grand tradition by doing it. And we're even working with the cities that we would have been performing in. So we're working in conjunction with those local municipalities for the weeks that we would have been performing live in their parks.
That's cool.
We'll be doing partnering stuff and restaurant stuff, and even like helping get like food pantry stuff, and like, so local community involvement and engagement. Anyway, my point is access. Anybody can come. Yay, which is great. And it's free. You can offer money as a result of watching it, which we are hoping they do because we need them to. Yeah. But anybody can watch it for free, which is really wonderful.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And one last thing, and I will set you free. I've taken up more of your time than I had anticipated.
I mean, I could talk to you all day long. You know that. You and I both know that. We could chop it up for the hours.
Yes, we can. You also have a podcast.
Yes.
Do you want to share that with?
I do, especially because the episode featuring the great and amazing Dameion Brown came out today. You don't even know that. It is out right now. We actually jumped it forward in our queue of editing our podcasts, because we usually record a few weeks in advance, because we felt like, no, this one needs to be heard right as soon as possible. So,
thanks a lot.
It's so good. So Dameion was on our podcast. It's called All the Answers. If you search that, you may or may not find it, because you know how things are. But if you search All the Answers, Katie Rubin, who's the primary host of the podcast, and I'm the sidekick who keeps things fun and interesting and moving, as does Katie Rubin. I don't know if you know her, but she's a phenomenal comedian and actor, but is also a spiritual healer. And that is what the podcast is actually about. It's sort of about the confluence of creativity, consciousness, and spirituality. Go check it out. She does like a reading for every guest that we have on. Dameion got a reading on our show, got some interesting advice. But that was after Dameion took us to college, you guys, on some deep realities of the world that we are currently living in. And it was such an honor to have you on there. I can't even say.
Wow. It was
so powerful. Anyway, All the Answers with Katie Rubin and Cassidy Brown. Also published by Sounds Awesome is our publishing channel. That's our producer has a publishing house, as it were, called Sounds Awesome. So yeah, check it out. It's really fun, and you can listen to all the past episodes. Crazy, crazy stuff happens on that show. Wild. Wild.
I appreciate your time, Cassidy. You are an amazing person, great friend, and I look forward to having a virtual meeting with you soon without audience.
Someday, man. Someday we'll get to have that beer that we've been promising each other for about 6 months now.
It'll come.
You
take care of yourself.
All right.
Give all your fellow
Chateau lights.
Yes, my love and respect and my well wishes. And
I love you, brother.
You take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon.
See you soon. Bye.